Hello everybody, this is Jesu. In case you don't know me already, I'm a long-term North American Lost Saga player, and I put a lot of Lost Saga swap combos on my YouTube channel because I find that to be fun and interesting. Um, so Lost Saga by far has been my most played game in my entire life by now. I fell for the game originally because I really love cartoony characters and I thought the swap system with different unique characters was really cool. Now that the intro is over, I'm going to start talking about why I haven't been uploading videos and playing as much as I used to. For starters, the game is just not that interesting anymore. It's not that I'm having a tough time winning games, it's that the people who actually play are 80% of the time unoriginal. Which is not really a problem on my main account when I have my gears and heroes to outplay without using new legendaries or Talon Berserker spam. I just feel that doing specific things to counter them isn't very fun or respectful either. For example, if there's a Berserker, I just spam Hawkeye's air dash and do Iori combos off the knockdown. I would never use that cheap combination against other heroes because it's just not very fun for either players. Aside from that, there are other things that I'll be discussing in this video that have been irking me about Lost Saga. As for what I have been doing, I've been doing some art practice, prepping for college, and playing Skullgirls PC Beta, which is a very fun fighting game, by the way, because the characters are very unique and patched to keep balanced. Aside from the minor problems that I have with the game, let's start talking about the greater problems of the game in general. Let's start with farming. Now, I'm assuming a lot of you people who watch my videos farm, which is okay because pretty much half of the 1,000 active players that play farm, and I know that some people say that KLS has farming as well, but that's aside the point. I don't hate the people for farming, I just feel it is a negative aspect to the health of the game for multiple reasons. First off, if people log on to a game to half AFK instead of actually playing, that's a big problem, and WeMade needs to address this. This is an online game, not some Facebook game that you play like Farmville when you're bored. I find farming to be incredibly boring and a waste of free time. Farming will get you the stats if you want them, but it takes a lot of time, and you aren't getting better at the game skill-wise by waiting there. Now we will be using a player that everyone knows for this example. If you find the following rant based on a real event offensive, feel free to unsubscribe because I didn't tell you to subscribe to me in the first place. This player's IGN is Viking. I'm using him as an example because he wasn't nice to me in game anyways, and he probably won't be watching this video because he hates me and he could care less about the state of the game with his stats. I first played Viking in 2v2 faction battle with my buddy Obey. We started the round with a bit of worry, but then proceeded to not worry after we won the first round. After we won the first round, we figured out that, well, he's not very experienced. We were able to beat him 3-1 when I only used Lightning Mage, who is not a strong 2v2 character if you don't swap. Next game we fought him, we lost because of Horn Drain combos and his incredibly laggy Card Magician teammate. After the rounds ended, he claimed that I was a hacker, which quite honestly made me laugh. Calling people for hacking during the last round is a typical newbie statement, because honestly, if I was hacking, wouldn't I have won with a quick 3-0? Aside from that silly point, he missed a Chieftain Spear after a Chief Helm by aiming wrong and then dashing 3 times, and he used the same Viking D Guard Break D combo on me every time I got close, even though I didn't fall for it after the second time. Now before I keep on sounding like a jerk by talking crap about him, the point is that I am very disappointed. It's very disappointing to see people win through only stats, and it's also very disappointing to see our highest ranks not play like you'd imagine. The main reason I hate seeing people win through stats is because I don't know how people without the stats, gears, heroes, and time invested into the game will play against them without getting extremely frustrated. Let's look at Lost Saga from an economic standpoint by separating the players into 3 groups. The lower class, middle class, and the high class. The lower class are the people who just started the game. The middle class are the people who don't farm but try to play the game, and the high class are the people who farm and probably get the pay to win gears through offers and paying and whatnot. Farming will basically cause a bad economic scenario where there will be no middle class. The middle class players will give up playing out of frustration in not being able to play against the high class that has an extremely unfair advantage. The lower class will keep coming, but most of them won't even play the game if it remains unbalanced in multiple areas, farming for this example. One common excuse for farming is that someone lost all their stuff in the server transfer. Something to note is that I'm strictly against farming, and I'm one of the players from the last server who's lost some of the most stuff out of anyone else. I had 24 perm heroes, over 200 gears, and the highest level lightning mage on the server, which I spent hours worth of time in Crusade and playing, and over 1 million at least in pesos to upgrade my plus 138 lightning, which I got through saving, believe it or not. So the take-home message on farming is that it's a huge factor in killing an already unbalanced game by making it harder for people who can't pay any money on the game for overpriced gears and GP, or it makes it also harder for the people who don't have the time to farm. Now let's talk about WeMade and Takuya Sugi's video. For a lot of LS players now, WeMade is their biggest issue. Ever since Takuya Sugi's revealing video on the difference between servers, this issue has been brought up more and more. Quite honestly, this is a good thing. Takuya Sugi is a very experienced player, probably one of the best on our server. Not only that, he's also been on KLS for a very long time, so he does know what he's talking about. Now before I get too flowery in talking about that awesome player, let's discuss some additional points not brought up in his video. I feel the reason he didn't include some of these points was because he assumes that people already knew about these. In KLS, not only do they have unnerfed quests, but you also get a free basic perm hero scroll when you make an account, which is the scroll that allows you to choose a permanent hero from a list of melee characters. What I mean by unnerfed quests is that most of the time when our quests are giving normal gear chests, the Koreans get perms instead. This is the same for timed legendary chests as well. In KLS, upon reaching the rank of 2LT, you get a permanent hero scroll. This basically means that the NA players are being treated much more unfairly than the Koreans despite being under the same company as KLS. Before I go and blame WeMade directly, we have to think about the new CEO as well. This new CEO used to work for Outspark and caused it to go bankrupt. It doesn't make much sense as to why WeMade would hire him then. Does WeMade know, or do they just not care so much? If you go look at WeMade's Facebook wall, at the posts that actually aren't taken down, a lot of people are moving to Taiwan LS because it's easier to get onto than KLS. WeMade, you are the chosen one. There's no other way to put it. You currently run the best and most updated Lost Saga server, and then you give us this service? You claim that you changed to bi-weekly updates because you're busy, but Takuya brought up a good point on Facebook about that too. How come you can come out with new content for KLS weekly then? WeMade was then speechless and couldn't respond to that comment. WeMade, you need to shape up, otherwise this game is going to die in less than a year. Overall, the player base is relatively small as it is, but include the smaller updates and the player base gets smaller, while more updates will bring a larger player base. If you want more players, you need to update more. We are still missing a lot of the heroes we used to have on OGP, and we are still behind a lot of other servers. Some players have said that Taiwan LS is getting Desperado soon. This hero has been requested for every update since this server came out, which personally makes me a bit salty as well, since that's my dream hero. Currently, KLS has 104 heroes, Taiwan LS has 75 heroes, and NALS has 60 heroes, as of 2 weeks ago. Even with these new free events, the server is still losing players to Taiwan LS. Basically, WeMade needs to release more content and make it snappy, otherwise this game is going to die sooner than you know it. Now let's talk a little bit about imbalance and new legendaries. First off, let me say this. This game has practically never felt balanced, besides the times in betas. Even then, there were heroes that shined much more than others. As we approach our 61st hero, we notice that the game is starting to feel more imbalanced than ever. There's also another reason for this though. Some of the two most noticeably strong characters at the moment, Tau Warrior and Savage Berserker, feel way too strong right now for our server. They are strong characters in KLS as well, but the fact that we got their re-reforms early without the other strong new heroes threw a monkey wrench in their balance even more. Sure, Iori is better than both of them in the end, but at least he's not full on easy mode in less experienced level of play. In the less experienced level of play, Tau and Berserker seem undefeatable because they are so good at punishing with easy high damaging combos, and less experienced players typically have less recoveries to save them from Tau skills. They are counterable in different ways, but it can even be a challenge to counter good players behind these characters. This issue is hard to address though. Nerfs in Lost Saga are extremely rare in comparison to other games like League of Legends. The reforms definitely do help, but that's what got us into this mess on the NA server. If they re-reformed all the subpar characters, then I wouldn't really need to complain about this. Now enough about that, let's talk about the new legendary gears. As of recently, our new legendary gears have been starting to get very, very good. This was expected though, as KLS had these gears released before us. But it still doesn't change the fact that these gears are slowly becoming too game-changing. In old Lost Saga, people used to complain about unnerfed Priest Robe. For those that don't know, Priest Robe was glitched upon release and didn't count in dex when calculating the drop damage you took. This made Priest Robe do very high damage for its cooldown. After a lot of months, the gear finally got nerfed. Ironically enough, that gear is completely useless now in comparison to other gears. Heck, Chi Slam is stronger than vanilla Priest Robe, and most people don't realize that. The damage from the knockup combined with the fall damage adds up to be more than the original Priest Robe. Even then, we have worse things to complain about. Pharaoh Armor is the most ridiculous gear I've played against. Its utility and total damage of combos is way too good. Remember the Pharaoh Helm Legendary? Remember Rocket Board? Remember Metal Wings? Or even if you do remember these, do you remember the last time they were used in battle? Exactly. These gears are just not worth anything in comparison to our other gears, and speaking of worth, it's extremely sad that people are spending practically $10 on legendaries when they are half price in KLS. Stop compulsively buying gears. Sure, I bought gears worth that price on the last server, but I only bought the gears I really wanted, which was only 3 of them over the 3 years I played on that server. You are paying $9 for one virtual gear. Help spread the word. If someone uses a new legendary gear on you in a combo, be like, nice $9 combo, until We Made stops being greedy and lowers it to the price they have in KLS, which is $4.50. You don't need legendary gears or any money to get good at this game. Gear Shifter on the last server is a great example of this. He was at one point 15th place in ladder, and he spent $20 on OGP. Do you know what he bought with those $20 too? He bought Soul Bad Guy Permanent and a gear chest. It just goes to show that money doesn't buy skill. Now, before I sound like a biased American that is only concerned about his first world problems, let's talk about the other 2 servers for Lost Saga that have big problems as well. Or at least, the server that used to be there. As some of you may know, the EU players of LS cannot play on our server because it is NA exclusive. OGP addressed this issue by creating a server for the EU players to play on. While this was really great for a lot of EU players, in the transfer We Made did not include an EU server, which basically means they have no official server to play on legitimately. This is extremely unfair as the EUs really loved this game as well. Pro players like Dinner either have to play on another server in EU only rooms or have to wait it out for We Made to possibly make an EU server. A quote from a user, Power of Ban, of Lost Saga, states that We Made will be considering making an EU server if Lost Saga gets enough votes on Greenlight for Steam, because they can then get a server over there more easily. This quote was seen on a Facebook comment on their page, so there's no guarantee that this is legit. So, if you haven't already, please support the EU players by voting for Lost Saga on Greenlight. They really love this game as well, and it's unfair that they always get the shortest end of the stick when it comes to Lost Saga. Now, let's also talk about the Indonesian players. Some NA players may wonder why a lot of Indonesians try to log on to our server, so now I will speak for their reason to do so because I've talked to quite a few Indonesians. There's a very specific reason though. Hackers, or as they call them most of the time, cheaters. Countless times with every friendly Indo I've talked to over Facebook have I heard the story of how Indo LS is heavily populated with cheaters that make it almost impossible to play the game normally. Not only that, they also tell me that their company feels much too greedy as well and won't fully address the issue on these cheaters. This makes the game extremely hard to play for them. I know a few players that stopped playing because of these issues, which just goes to show that we aren't the only server with problems. I should also state that I really don't care if Indos and EUs are on our server, as long as they typically play in their own rooms or just join my room in a very casual match. Now let's talk about the KLS meta, since this is a problem as NALS is approaching it very fast due to farming. For those of you that don't know, meta is short for metagame, which refers to either the highest level of play or the most effective level of play at that moment. As a lot of you well-seasoned players know, the KLS meta is kind of boring. On KLS, in high-level teams, all you see is plus 140 cooldown kill combos using the Korean bread-and-butter skill combo known as Dark Pact TCAM sign. Dark Pact is stupidly broken as it is, but a godsend broken for higher level play when combined with TCAM sign. These two gears allow for extremely easy kill combos in which you basically only need to use skills. You don't even need to Iori Infinite with how easy these combos are. The Korean meta is also filled over the brim with the new legendaries for their combos, making the game start to be extremely unskilled. Now don't get me wrong, the average Korean player will still have very good mechanics, even if they don't use these combos. They use these combos just because they want to win. If you want an example of what I'm talking about here, go search on YouTube KLS 3v3 Pro Battle. You should get a video recorded by Avalanche. The first round is all you need to watch, as it is only 1 minute and 6 seconds with fully legendary gear combos for kills. To me, this is quite disgusting. I already refrain from doing long swap combos because I feel they are cheap and don't always show true skill. But with these combos, a 2-year-old could pull them off and still kill some of the best players in the game if they pull them off right. The moral of this part of the rant is that while the Koreans are still really pro, these combos are tainting their server. And for this topic, I will discuss skill faking and its effects on the game as a whole. Now before we get started, yes, I used to be in a skill faking guild on this server, but I did not actually lower my skill level for it, nor did I always do similar skill rooms. For those wondering why my skill level is not that high, I don't farm, I don't KS, and maining Lightning Mage means you typically play a support role. Skill level also does not determine how well a player plays overall. I was in that guild because I had some good friends there. I will not mention any IGNs or guilds for this topic because some of these people are my friends, and I don't want to rat them out. First, let's talk about what skill faking actually is. Skill faking is the process of intentionally lowering your KDR ratio to lower your skill level. This allows experienced or high stat players to pick up easy wins using the similar skill search option in Faction Battle. Doing this correctly allows for players to stack high consecutive wins for lots of overall rewards. This is a problem because it's basically slightly lesser farming that calls for beating up defenseless, less experienced players. Ironically enough for me to say, this is worse for the community than farming in the end. Not only did it not feel right when I was in a few similar skill rooms, but it's also really frustrating for the new players getting picked on. In the end, this process actually causes new players to quit easier, and stacked players to become more stacked, which will also kill our already unpopular game. However, it's difficult to address this issue because of the fact that you can lower your skill level in multiple ways. This is a bonus section before I wrap things up with this video. I'm just going to talk about the recent high-profile unfair bans from WeMade on Dave's and Agent. People claimed that Dave's hacked even though he didn't. Right before he got banned, he had his IGN as Waru. Dave spent a lot of money and time on this server and had a very good assassin. Now he's forced to play on alts because he no longer has his account. People claim that Agent got banned for reporting a weird item he got to WeMade, which is really unfair as well, because he spent a lot of time on this game as well. It was also not his fault for getting that gear. It was WeMade's fault because it is their game. Doing bans like these will only hurt yourself more in the process, WeMade. You are banning high-ranked players who are usually the ones that spend a lot more money and time on the game. If this keeps up as well, this game is as good as gone. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening. I hope my voice wasn't too boring for you guys. Hopefully WeMade will pick themselves up in the future. That last update with Sorcerer was a pretty good one because a lot of people can use him and we got a nice free event. Cheers and happy Lost Sagaing. Jesu out.